The seas were already ruled before the first shark slashed through the waves, before whales sang their eerie songs under the ice, and even before dinosaurs thought about walking on land. Not by one beast, but by many. Strange giants with armor and teeth that crush. Snake-like killers with lips like sawblades. Scientists are still not sure how to explain these strange creatures. It's not just a story about big fish or long-ago reptiles. It's the real wild history of Earth's most dangerous and lost masters. Welcome to the ocean of the past, where evolution didn't just swim, it roared. The armored fish that bit first, Dunkleosteus. Before sharks took over the seas, there was another type of killer fish moving through the depths. It was armored, built like a tank, and had jaws strong enough to break bones. This thing was called Dunkleosteus. This fish lived about 360 million years ago in the Devonian period. During this time, fish were just starting to take over the seas on Earth, and Dunkleosteus stood out as one of the scariest creatures the world had ever seen. Dunkleosteus could grow up to 33 feet long and weigh over 4 tons. That's about the size of a full-grown orca, but way more fearsome. Unlike sharks or whales today, this beast didn't have smooth skin or a flexible body. Its entire head and part of its torso were wrapped in thick plates of bony armor, like it was wearing a natural helmet. These armor plates weren't just for defense, they were also part of its deadly weapon system. Dunkleosteus didn't have teeth. Instead, it had 2 sharp, bony blades that it used like shears. When it opened its mouth, those blades shut very quickly, which was very scary. Scientists have looked at its jaws and found that it has more than 8,000 pounds of force per square inch. That's stronger than most crocodile bites or even the bites of Tyrannosaurus rex. But what really shocks me is how fast it could bite. Dunkleosteus's head had a special opening that let it open and close its jaws very quickly, in just 1/50th of a second. Its fast movement made a vacuum that pulled food right into its mouth. Think of a huge fish with armor that is hiding in the coral reef's shadows and waiting for something to swim by. As quickly as it can, it charges forward, opens its mouth, and the water rushes in, taking its unfortunate prey with it. The catch is not going to make it. It was over in an instant. Fossils of Dunkleosteus have been found with broken bones and scales inside its guts, showing that it often ate other animals with fur. In fact, some experts think Dunkleosteus might have been a cannibal that ate other dinosaurs of the same species when food was scarce. This predator belonged to a group of ancient fish called placoderms. Most placoderms were small, slow, and not very dangerous. But Dunkleosteus was the exception. It was the heavyweight champion of its time, and probably the top predator in every part of the ocean it swam through. Fossils have been found in places like North America, Europe, and even Morocco, which shows that it had a wide range and was successful in many different environments. Even though it was built like a tank, Dunkleosteus wasn't slow. Its tail was likely strong and flexible, allowing it to dart forward quickly when hunting. We haven't found complete fossils of the tail or back end of the body, but scientists believe it had a torpedo-like shape, perfect for quick bursts of speed. Its design suggests it didn't chase prey over long distances, but preferred ambush attacks, fast, brutal, and over in seconds. The weirdest thing about Dunkleosteus is that it might have learned to bite as it got older. The wear and marks on the jaw fossils of younger people show that they practiced biting over time. The bigger they got, the stronger and better their jaws got at cutting through tough food. This suggests that the fish learned as it grew, which doesn't happen very often in fish, but makes sense for a hunter whose survival depended on how well it could bite. So why did this beast disappear? Around 360 million years ago, a mass extinction event hit the planet, known as the Late Devonian Extinction. Oxygen levels in the ocean dropped. Many species of fish and other marine animals died out. Dunkleosteus, being a large predator, likely ran out of food. Some scientists also suggest that as newer, faster sharks started to evolve, they may have outcompeted placoderms like Dunkleosteus, but even if its reign ended, it left behind a powerful legacy, one of the first true apex predators in Earth's oceans. Megalodon, the real jaws of the Cenozoic. You think the great white shark is scary. Picture something almost 3 times bigger that could crush a car with its bite. The Megalodon was that. Its name means big tooth, and some of its teeth were longer than 7 inches, which is longer than a fist. This animal ruled the seas from about 23 to 3.6 million years ago, after the dinosaurs died out. It did more than just hunt, it ruled. Megalodon could reach up to 60 feet in length, maybe even longer. That's nearly the size of a bowling lane, with a mouth wide enough to swallow 2 grown people side by side. Its jaw could open over 6 feet tall, and inside that mouth were around 250 serrated teeth, perfect for tearing through flesh and bone. Fossils of whale bones with Megalodon bite marks show that it hunted large prey, including early whales, dolphins, and even giant sea turtles. It was the top predator in nearly every ocean on Earth. But this wasn't just a bigger version of a modern shark. In fact, it likely looked a bit different. For years, people thought Megalodon resembled a massive great white. But new research suggests its body shape may have been stockier and more powerful, built more like a torpedo with massive pectoral fins and a shorter nose. This design helped it move quickly in short bursts, perfect for ambushing large, slow-moving prey. Megalodon didn't chase tiny fish. It went after the biggest meals in the ocean. Scientists think it may have hunted by targeting the soft underbellies of whales or biting off fins first to stop them from swimming away. With a bite force estimated at over 40,000 pounds per square inch, stronger than any known animal, it could easily crack ribs, skulls, or spines with a single chomp. Its attacks would have been quick, bloody, and deadly. Fossilized nursery sites have been found in warm, shallow coastal areas, suggesting that Megalodon gave birth to live young and protected them in these safe zones until they were big enough to swim in open water. Even the babies were huge. Some may have been over 6 feet long at birth, already the size of adult humans. That means newborn megalodons were born ready to hunt. What amazed people most about Megalodon was how far it could roam. It is only in Antarctica that fossilized teeth have not been found. It lived in warm, shallow seas all over the world, which shows how flexible and widespread it was. It had a lot of power, but something made it go away. Megalodon went extinct around 3.6 million years ago, and scientists are still trying to figure out why. One leading theory is that a cooling of the oceans made it harder for the shark to survive. As sea levels dropped and temperatures fell, Megalodon may have lost access to its favorite hunting grounds and prey. Another idea is that new predators showed up, like the early ancestors of killer whales and great whites. These smaller, faster, smarter hunters may have outcompeted Megalodon, especially as ocean ecosystems began to change. Along with that, Megalodon's body is a secret. Sharks' skeletons are made of tissue instead of bone, so not many full skeletons have been found. Teeth and a few vertebrae tell us most of what we know. But those teeth tell us a lot. A huge number of them can be found in riverbeds, seaside rocks, and sediments deep in the ocean. In fact, fossil hunters still find Megalodon teeth today. The hard enamel on these teeth means that they are often in perfect condition. Over the years, many people have wondered if Megalodon might still be alive in the deep ocean. Stories of massive shadows under boats and giant bites on whale carcasses have fueled legends and documentaries. But scientists agree, there's no real evidence it survived. The ocean is deep, but a predator that size would need huge amounts of food and would likely leave behind obvious signs of its presence. Sadly, or thankfully, this monster is truly gone. Pliosaur vs. Mosasaur, the battle for the Cretaceous Sea. During the time of the dinosaurs, dangerous animals lived in more than just the land. The Pliosaur and the Mosasaur were 2 huge animals that fought for supremacy in the seas during the Cretaceous period. These were not sharks or fish. One was huge and had a jaw that could crush you, and the other was shaped like a sea snake and had lightning-fast reactions. For a short time in Earth's past, their worlds may have met. Each controlled its own part of the ocean at different times. Pliosaurs were part of a larger group called Plesiosaurs, but unlike the long-necked versions, Pliosaurs had short necks, massive heads, and jaws made for grabbing and destroying prey. One of the most famous was Pliosaurus funki, sometimes called Predator X. It could grow over 40 feet long, and its skull alone was more than 6 feet. That skull held teeth the size of bananas, and a bite force possibly stronger than a T-Rex. This predator swam with 4 powerful flippers, giving it a smooth flying motion underwater, perfect for chasing down prey or sneaking up on it from below. Mosasaurus, on the other hand, belonged to a completely different family. It was a lizard, believe it or not, related to today's monitor lizards and snakes. It adapted to life in the water later than the pliosaurs did, but it evolved fast. Some species of mosasaur, like Mosasaurus hoffmanni, grew up to 50 feet long. It had a long, muscular body, paddle-like limbs, and a powerful tail shaped like a shark's. This body design helped it move with quick, powerful strokes, allowing it to dart forward and snatch prey with shocking speed. The pliosaur's bite was meant to crush, but the mosasaur's jaws were made to cut. It had bent, sharp teeth that were great for cutting through meat or grabbing slippery fish. More scary, mosasaurs had jaws that could open in 2 places and heads that could bend, like snakes. This let them swallow their food almost whole. They ate a lot of different things, like fish, turtles, other mosasaurs, and maybe even some unfortunate plesiosaurs, as shown by fossils of their stomachs. So what happens when these 2 monsters live in the same ocean? For most of the Jurassic and early Cretaceous period, pliosaurs were the top predators. They ruled for millions of years with almost no competition. But near the end of the Cretaceous, mosasaurs exploded onto the scene. They spread fast, filled in different predator roles, and outcompeted older marine reptiles. Many paleontologists believe that by the time of the late Cretaceous, mosasaurs had completely replaced pliosaurs as the dominant hunters. But it's possible their paths crossed. Some fossils suggest overlap in time and space, especially in regions like what is now Europe or the ancient seas that once covered North America. If a young pliosaur met a full-grown mosasaur, the fight would likely end fast. But between 2 similar-sized adults, the battle would be intense. The pliosaur's advantage was brute strength. Its bite could crush bone and hold on to struggling prey. But the mosasaur had speed, agility, and a more flexible body. Its strike could come from almost any direction, and once it got a grip, it could twist and tear with deadly efficiency. Even though there isn't a fossil that proves they fought, there is fossil proof of very violent battles between marines. Skeletons of mosasaurs that have bite marks from other mosasaurs, plesiosaur remains found in the bellies of mosasaurs, and even fossils of giant turtles and sharks that have deep cuts. The water wasn't calm. It looked like a war zone. Another major difference between these 2 predators was how they sensed the world. Pliosaurs may have relied more on vision and ambush tactics, striking from below like modern orcas. Mosasaurs, however, likely had stronger smell or vibration sensing abilities, letting them hunt in murky waters or low-light conditions. This gave them a huge advantage in hunting stealthy prey, or sneaking up on slower animals like the last plesiosaurs. A rock from space, not a fight, put an end to it all. Most of the big animals that lived on land and in the sea died when the asteroid hit Earth 66 million years ago. It is thought that mosasaurs and the last sea dinosaurs, like pliosaurs, died out. But for millions of years before that, the deep masters of the time were afraid of them. The Tully monster and other bizarre invertebrates. A strange animal lived in the shallow, muddy seas off the coast of what is now Illinois more than 300 million years ago. Scientists still don't fully understand what it was. From the front, it looked like something from a dream. A long, flexible nose finishing in a claw-like jaw. The body was long and tube-shaped, and the tail was thin and had fins on both sides. Like the lights on a tiny alien submarine, Its eyes were on the ends of a stiff bar that stuck out from both sides of its head. It is called the Tully monster, or Tullymonstrum gregarium, and it is one of the strangest animal fossils ever found. The Tully monster is so odd that for decades, no one even knew what kind of animal it was. Was it a worm, a mollusk, a type of fish? Some scientists thought it was related to sea slugs. Others thought it might be a primitive vertebrate. Even now, researchers still argue about it. Some studies suggest it was an early jawless fish, while others place it closer to soft-bodied invertebrates. The mystery remains because no modern animal looks anything like it, and the fossils don't show any hard parts like bones or shells. That time, around 300 million years ago, was the Carboniferous period. It lived in estuaries and coastal lakes. At that time, giant insects flew through the air, and the first animals crawled on land. It's likely that the Tully monster hunted small sea creatures, like worms or tiny crabs, with its long proboscis. That jaw at the end that looked like claws might have worked like pincers to grab and pull food into its mouth. But even this is just a guess. We don't know what it ate because no one has ever found stomach contents that have been kept. Its size varied, but most specimens were between 4 and 14 inches long. Not huge, but strange enough to get noticed. And it did get noticed. The Tully monster is the state fossil of Illinois, and all known fossils come from a single place, the Mason Creek fossil beds. These fossil beds are special because they preserve soft-bodied creatures in fine detail, something that's incredibly rare. Most animals without bones or shells decay and disappear without a trace, but the Tully monster was lucky, captured in iron-rich mud that hardened into stone. The Tully monster wasn't the only strange thing around. The old seas were full of strange animals that can't be explained. The dendrite, a type of stalked filter eater, looked like a flower, but was actually an animal. Some, like Wiwaxia, had soft bodies with metal plates and spines that faced backwards. Nectocaris was even stranger. It looked like a cross between a squid and a fish, but it wasn't quite either. Before fish got mouths and sharks learned to hunt, these animals ruled the seas. One of the most powerful examples is Anomalocaris, which lived even earlier, during the Cambrian period, over 500 million years ago. It had 2 long, spiny arms to grab prey, and a circular, toothed mouth that looked like a meat grinder. It could grow over 3 feet long, which at the time made it one of the largest animals on Earth. It hunted trilobites, those iconic armored creatures with many legs, and could bite right through their shells. While it's not related to the Tully monster, both show how bizarre early ocean life really was. These odd invertebrates didn't just look strange, they often behaved in ways that no modern animal does. Some floated upside down, others swam by undulating their entire bodies like ribbons. And some, like Opabinia, had 5 eyes and a vacuum hose snout with a claw at the end. If you think science fiction invents weird creatures, just look at the fossil record. Where did all of these weak-willed leaders go? Animals with tougher shells, bones and teeth became more common over time. They were safer and knew how to hunt better. A lot of the strange animals that lived in the water either died or were pushed to deeper, darker parts of the ocean. But some lived on in smaller forms. Those early ocean weirdos left their mark on squid, octopuses and jellyfish. Some experts even think the Tully monster might have been linked to lampreys, which are fish that don't have jaws but have mouths that look like sucker traps. But once more, it's just a thought. Leviathan Melvillei, the whale that hunted whales. Millions of years ago, before orcas learned to hunt in groups and long before people set sail in search of giant sea creatures, there was a whale that was so strong and scary that it killed other whales. Leviathan Melvillei was its name, and it wasn't just big, it was mean. This old hunter lived during the Miocene era, about 13 million years ago. Its teeth, not its size, were what made it really scary. Discovered in 2008 off the coast of Peru, Leviathan Melvillei shocked scientists because it didn't behave like the baleen whales we know today. It didn't filter feed or eat krill. Instead, it had enormous conical teeth in both its upper and lower jaws, something very few whales have. These weren't just for show. Some of these teeth were over a foot long, thicker than a human arm, and built for gripping, tearing, and crushing. Its skull alone was about 10 feet long, nearly the size of a small car. The structure of its jaws and skull suggested a biting force capable of snapping bone. Many experts believe its bite strength may have rivaled or even surpassed that of modern killer whales. But while orcas used teamwork to take down prey, Leviathan needed no help. It was a solitary monster, built for solo kills. Megalodon, the huge ancient shark that lived around the same time as this whale, was about the same size as this whale. It was probably between 55 and 60 feet long. They probably had different roles in the environment, but it's possible that their hunting grounds crossed. This could have led to one of the fiercest battles between predators in the history of the ocean. Imagine the two most dangerous killers from the Miocene seas coming together. One was made for speed and cutting, and the other was made for raw strength and crushing bites. Leviathan Melvillei's prey of choice, other marine mammals. Fossil evidence and jaw shape suggest that it hunted medium-sized whales, early dolphins, and possibly even large seals. Like modern orcas, it may have targeted the heads and bellies of its victims, delivering quick, fatal bites before tearing them apart. Its teeth were perfect for holding on to struggling prey and ripping chunks of flesh away, a method far more violent than anything seen in filter-feeding whales today. What's most interesting about Leviathan Melvillei is how it fits into the history of whales. The two main types of whales today are baleen whales, which filter feed, and toothed whales, which include dolphins, porpoises, and sperm whales. It is thought that Leviathan was a toothed whale, which is linked to sperm whales today. However, sperm whales today don't use their teeth to tear or chew their food. In fact, they mostly eat squid by sucking them in. On the other hand, Leviathan Melvillei lived in a very different way. It was an active hunter that lived on the surface and used its teeth like a huge tool to tear flesh apart. Its name is a reference to the biblical sea monster Leviathan and to Herman Melville, the author of Moby Dick. And that's fitting, because this whale was the real version of the sea monster sailors used to whisper about. The giant white whale from literature may have been inspired by sperm whales, but Leviathan Melvillei was a genuine beast that could have rammed a ship and left it in splinters, if ships had existed back then. Despite its terrifying abilities, Leviathan Melvillei eventually vanished. The reasons for its extinction remain unclear. Some scientists think it may have lost access to prey as ocean temperatures changed and other marine mammals evolved new defenses. Others believe that competition with Megalodon or early orcas might have driven it into smaller hunting grounds until it disappeared altogether. Whatever the cause, it left behind only scattered fossil fragments, mostly skull and jaw parts, but enough to prove that it once ruled the sea. One skull of Leviathan Melvillei has been found so far, but it has changed the way we think about the past of whales. It showed that whales weren't just running away from danger for a short time. They were the danger. Not just any animals that hunt, but some of the most dangerous animals the ocean has ever seen. Helicoprion, the circular saw shark that shouldn't exist. You might have thought it was a joke or a monster from a sci-fi movie if someone told you that a shark once swam the seas with a circle saw for a mouth. But that thing was real more than 270 million years ago. It was called Helicoprion, and experts didn't understand it for more than 100 years. This strange animal that looked like a shark didn't have rings of teeth like current sharks do. Instead, it had a whorl of teeth in the shape of a spiral. It looked like a buzzsaw of teeth curled tightly into its lower mouth like a tape measure. The first fossils of Helicoprion were discovered in the late 1800s, mostly in what is now Idaho, Russia, and Australia. But all scientists had were the tooth whorls. No bones, no skull, just a tightly packed spiral of sharp, serrated teeth. The shape was so bizarre that early researchers didn't know what to make of it. Some thought it was a defensive tail weapon. Others believed it sat on the shark's nose, and one idea even suggested it was mounted on the back, like a fin. It wasn't until the early 2010s that modern imaging technology, like CT scans, helped researchers place the saw in its proper position. Turns out, the spiral sat inside the lower jaw, coiled tightly with the teeth facing forward. As new teeth grew from the center of the coil, older ones were pushed outward. This setup was unlike anything seen in the animal kingdom, then or now. The mystery wasn't over, though. What did you do with the saw? Some people thought it cut food in half like a circle blade. Some people thought it was a way to hold on to slippery foods like squid. Today, the most popular idea is that the saw was used to grab and cut up soft-bodied animals. When Helicoprion closed its mouth, the tooth whorl probably rolled back a little, which pulled the food in and tore it apart all at once. The body of Helicoprion is also a mystery. Because its skeleton was made of cartilage instead of bone, most of it didn't fossilize. Scientists believe it looked similar to a modern ratfish or a slender shark, perhaps 13 to 25 feet long. It had a narrow body, long tail, and likely swam by, undulating its body side to side. Its mouth, located underneath its head like a shovel-nosed plow, may have helped it swim close to the seafloor and ambush prey from below. Despite the odd jaw, Helicoprion was no evolutionary mistake. It was a successful predator that survived for nearly 10 million years during the Permian period, before the biggest extinction event in Earth's history wiped out 90% of marine life. That kind of survival means the buzzsaw jaw worked. It found a niche in the ecosystem, likely feeding on soft, squid-like creatures that didn't require heavy-duty biting power. The tooth whorl allowed it to slice cleanly and efficiently, almost like cutting noodles with a spinning blade. Fossil evidence suggests that Helicoprion may have lived in shallow coastal waters and deeper offshore zones. It wasn't the only strange shark-like creature of its time either. The Permian seas were filled with bizarre early cartilaginous fish, including Stethocanthus, which had a weird anvil-shaped fin on its back, and Falcatus, a shark with a sword-like spike above its head. But Helicoprion stands out as the weirdest, and one of the most puzzling. Not as well known is the fact that some tooth whorls have damage and wear that shows they were used a lot and hard. That backs up the idea that this wasn't just a feature for show or a mating tool. It was a real cutting tool that was used every day to stay alive. And the spiral's teeth were tightly stacked on top of each other. As the older ones wore out, new ones replaced them, making a belt of new blades that never stopped. Even now, Helicoprion fuels debates and scientific papers. Every new fossil adds a piece to the puzzle, and yet no one has ever found a complete body, just more and more spirals of teeth. It's one of the best reminders that evolution doesn't always work in straight lines. Sometimes it creates something so odd, so alien, that even experts can't believe it ever existed. Ichthyosaurs, the dolphin-like reptiles that took over. Think about a creature that wasn't a fish or an animal, but looked like a dolphin, swam like a tuna, had live babies and breathed air. It was a living thing. Not just any animal, but one that ruled the seas for more than 150 million years. A group of marine lizards called Ichthyosaurs rose to power during the Triassic period. They did very well before whales and sharks took over the sea. The name Ichthyosaur means fish lizard, and that's a perfect description of how strange these animals were. They started out with lizard-like bodies and long, paddle-like tails. But over millions of years, they evolved into fast, streamlined swimmers with torpedo-shaped bodies. Some were small, about the size of a dolphin, while others, like Shonisaurus, grew up to 70 feet long, rivaling modern blue whales in length. These ocean reptiles came in all sizes, and they adapted to almost every part of the marine food web. Unlike most reptiles, Ichthyosaurs didn't lay eggs on land. They gave birth to live young directly in the water. Fossil evidence even shows unborn baby ichthyosaurs inside their mothers' bodies, perfectly preserved. In one case, a fossil was found showing a baby halfway out of the birth canal. This tells us they were fully adapted to life at sea, no beach crawling or nesting like sea turtles. They were truly ocean creatures from start to finish. Ichthyosaurs also had huge eyes. some of the largest ever seen in the animal kingdom. Species like Temnodontosaurus had eyes as wide as a dinner plate, protected by bony rings that kept them from collapsing under deep sea pressure. That means these reptiles could probably dive deep in search of prey, using their massive eyes to spot food in dark, murky waters. They likely hunted squid, fish, and other smaller marine animals, and some may have used sonar-like senses, similar to how dolphins hunt today. Fast swimming was one thing that set ichthyosaurs apart. Their bodies were built so they could move quickly. They had strong tails and stiff sticks that looked like fins. Some of them might be able to go at least 25 miles per hour. Because of how well their shape worked, modern builders have studied ichthyosaur fossils to learn how to make submarines and other vehicles that can go underwater better. Nature had already figured out how to deal with drag and flow a long time before people did. They also had different hunting styles depending on their shape and size. Some species had long, narrow snouts filled with tiny teeth, perfect for snapping up slippery fish. Others had strong jaws and thick teeth made for crushing harder prey like shellfish. Some smaller ichthyosaurs even had toothless mouths and may have sucked up soft-bodied animals from the ocean floor. No matter the strategy, ichthyosaurs filled almost every role a predator could in the ancient oceans. But they weren't in charge forever. There were ichthyosaurs all over the place in the early Jurassic time. They were gone by the end of the Cretaceous, though. What took place? It's possible that other sea reptiles like Mosasaurs and Plesiosaurs were better at hunting them. Ocean temperatures changing, coasts moving, and animals changing may have also played a part. Their slow death didn't happen all at once. It happened slowly over millions of years as new predators took their place. Ichthyosaurs were the first vertebrates to evolve into a fully oceanic lifestyle. They showed that reptiles, usually thought of as land creatures, could thrive in deep water. Their fossils have been found all over the world, from the Arctic to South America. One of the earliest complete ichthyosaur skeletons was found in England by Mary Anning, a young fossil hunter in the 1800s who helped change how scientists viewed prehistoric life. One that not many people know. It's possible that some ichthyosaurs had warm blood. Their bone structure and growth trends show that they may have been able to control their body temperature, which would have helped them stay alive in colder waters. That would make them even more like sea animals today. These are creatures that seem very different from us, but they may have faced and solved some of the same problems. Thalattoarchon, the sea reptile that ate its own kind. There was a predator that made the ocean into a cruel battlefield and sometimes turned on its own kind. This predator lived before Mosasaurs, Pliosaurs, and even the sleek Ichthyosaurs reached their peak. Its name, Thalattoarchon sorphagis, means ruler of the sea that eats lizards. There's something better than that name. This sea creature wasn't just a master of the waves. It also hunted other top predators, including other top predators like itself. That means Thalattoarchon was one of the first known top predators. Thalattoarchon lived around 244 million years ago, during the Middle Triassic period, just a few million years after Earth's worst mass extinction event. This was a time when life was slowly crawling back from the brink. Oceans were still unstable and ecosystems were fragile. Yet in this dangerous time, this animal rose to the top in just a short evolutionary window. It didn't wait for a peaceful world. It carved a place for itself with teeth and muscle. At nearly 28 feet long, Thalattoarchon was an early kind of ichthyosaur, though it didn't yet have the streamlined, dolphin-like look of its later relatives. Its head was huge and boxy, with an oversized mouth packed full of large, sharp, and widely spaced teeth. These weren't needle-like teeth for catching small fish. They were blade-shaped, perfect for cutting through thick flesh, snapping bones, and holding onto large, struggling prey. We can tell everything we need to know from the way its teeth are built. Thalattoarchon hunted big animals, maybe even other marine lizards about the same size as it. Most ocean hunters ate fish, squid, or shelled animals. It ate more than just meat. It was very good at killing things that were already tough to kill. In that group are family members, rivals, and anything else that shared its hunting areas. Fossils show that this animal may have eaten other ichthyosaurs, or at least eaten other animals that looked like it. It was already at the top of the food chain in a sea full of species that were getting better. Its body was long and muscular, with large paddle-shaped limbs and a powerful tail. It probably wasn't built for extreme speed, but more for control and power. This would have allowed it to maneuver quickly during a chase and overpower its prey in a struggle. It may have hunted in open waters, where visibility was better and targets were larger. With no natural predators, it had the freedom to strike without fear. The fossil of Thalattoarchon was discovered in Nevada in 2010. Back then, that part of the world was covered by a warm, shallow ocean connected to the larger Panthalassic Ocean. Only one mostly complete skeleton has ever been found, but it was enough to change how scientists view early marine ecosystems. Before this discovery, it was thought that big specialized predators didn't evolve until much later in the Mesozoic, but Thalattoarchon proved that nature wasted no time creating killers after the extinction that wiped out most life on Earth. The speed with which this animal showed up is one of the most surprising things. After only 8 million years, Thalattoarchon was already at the top of the food chain. The Permian extinction was the deadliest event in history. Something like that shows how quickly evolution can fill a need, and how life always comes up with new ideas, even if they are scary. Its extinction, like its rise, was fast. Thalattoarchon didn't survive long in the fossil record. New predators emerged, ocean ecosystems changed, and more advanced ichthyosaurs took over. But it set the stage for the dominance of marine reptiles for the next 150 million years. It showed that reptiles could evolve not just to survive in the ocean, but to dominate it with intelligence, strength, and terrifying weapons. Giant sea scorpions, Eurypterids, the terror of shallow waters. Before there were sharks, long before dinosaurs, a long time before trees grew tall on land, there were scary creatures in the sea. Some of them had claws. These are the Eurypterids, which are also called giant sea scorpions. More than 400 million years ago, these strange arthropods ruled the Earth's lakes, rivers, and seas. Some of them were so big that an adult would have to step back in fear. Eurypterids weren't actually scorpions, though they looked like them. They were related to modern arachnids, think spiders and horseshoe crabs. Some were just a few inches long, harmless little hunters that scurried along the sea floor. But others grew to enormous sizes. The biggest, Echilopterus renanii, could reach over 8 feet in length. That's taller than most humans and longer than a motorcycle. Now imagine that crawling toward you in the shallows with claws open wide. These animals were not soft or squishy. They wore hard exoskeletons, armor plates that covered their bodies like shields. Their long, flat tails helped them steer through the water, and many had paddles for swimming. Their claws, or pincers, came in different shapes depending on the species. Some had slender arms for catching fish, while others had thick serrated claws meant for crushing prey. Most Eurypterids lived in shallow coastal waters and river systems. They prowled muddy seabeds, waiting to pounce on passing trilobites, worms, and early fish. Some likely buried themselves in the sand like modern-day ambush predators. Others may have been more active, swimming along in search of prey. Fossils even show that some Eurypterids could walk on land for short distances, probably crawling between tidal pools or laying eggs like modern horseshoe crabs. They used more than just their claws. Some had spiky limbs to trap prey in a sudden burst. Others had sensitive hairs on their bodies that could detect movement in the water. They didn't have great vision, but in their murky world, that didn't matter. They hunted with their bodies, fast, armored, and always ready to strike. The 6-foot-long attacker, Pterygotus, is one of the most well-known Eurypterids. It has strong moving paddles and nasty pincers. It most likely hunted protected fish in old rivers and lakes. It might be able to quickly lunge at its food, pin it down, and tear it apart with its claws. But it wasn't by itself. With its strange club-shaped arms, Mixopterus looked like a flail weapon from back in the day. They all added something scary to the old menu. These creatures ruled for over 200 million years, surviving through changing climates, shifting continents, and evolving rivals. But eventually, their time ended. As jawed fish became faster and more aggressive, eurypterids began to disappear. They were outcompeted. The shallow seas where they once ruled became home to bigger, better predators. By the time of the Permian extinction, about 252 million years ago, most eurypterids were gone. In any case, their skeletons tell a very clear story. Some were found in the middle of a crawl, their limbs spread out as if they were looking for food. Some of them have bite marks from animals that ate them, showing that even giants can fall. Thousands of eurypterid fossils have been found squished together in some places, making it look like there was a traffic jam in the Stone Age. A lot of the animals gathered in these places at once, so they may have been places where they shed their skin or mated. Think of a small bay full of giants moving around in armor. That's not a good place to swim. Not as well-known fact is that eurypterids were among the first mammals to develop different types of limbs for different purposes. Some legs helped people walk, some for swimming, some are just for taking. This helped them respond to different situations and do well in them. They weren't just brutes, they were body designers who broke new ground. The Ammonites, shells of steel in a predator's world. Their circular shells were coiled like ram's horns, and limbs stuck out of the openings. They looked like snails from space. But these were not slow, gentle animals. For more than 300 million years, Ammonites ruled the seas. They were hunters and survivors that moved quickly and had jet engines. They were all over the place, from the Devonian to the end of the Cretaceous. There are big ones, small ones, protected ones, and spiky ones. Before everything went up in flames, they were the most powerful cephalopods in Earth's history. Ammonites were close relatives of today's squids, octopuses, and cuttlefish. But instead of soft, sac-like bodies, they built external shells that protected them like armor. These shells weren't just for defense, they were marvels of engineering. Inside the shell were chambers filled with gas or fluid, and the ammonite could adjust them to float or sink. Like submarines with built-in buoyancy control, they moved up and down through the water column with ease. They used jet propulsion to swim. By squirting water through a tube-like siphon, they could shoot themselves forward, fast enough to escape predators or chase prey. Their soft body, protected inside the shell's first chamber, had many arms or tentacles, likely covered in tiny suction cups or hooks. With those arms, they could grab small fish, plankton, and other soft-bodied animals. The variety of ammonites was astonishing. Some shells were tightly coiled, others loosely spiraled, and some twisted into odd shapes like corkscrews. A few even had ribs or spines sticking out, extra armor against bites. The largest ammonites, like Parapuzosia sepenredensis, grew over 6 feet across. That's the size of a grown man, and it wasn't just shell. It housed a living, squishy animal with eyes and a beak strong enough to crush its food. Ammonites lived in every ocean and in every type of marine environment, from warm, shallow coastal reefs to colder, deeper waters. Some stayed near the surface, floating and feeding on tiny plankton. Others sank lower, hunting crustaceans and hiding from bigger threats. Their fossils have been found on every continent, even high in the mountains. How? Because millions of years ago, those mountain rocks were part of ancient seafloors. They were more than just animals. They kept the time. Their shells changed so often and grew so quickly that scientists now use them to figure out how old rock layers are. A certain type of ammonite can help you figure out how old a rock is to within a few 100,000 years. In geology, that's the same as being able to say for sure what day something happened. But life wasn't easy for ammonites. They had predators everywhere: Pliosaurs, Mosasaurs, and even giant fish like Xiphactinus. Many ammonite fossils are found with bite marks on the shell, some cleanly punctured right where the soft body would have been. These predators knew exactly where to strike. It was like nature had taught them the weak point. Go for the center, avoid the edges. Not to worry, Ammonites were smart. The way their shells were made helped protect them from bites and pressure. Some changed over time to make it harder for animals that want to eat them to get inside. Some people stayed small and moved into schools to be safe. Some even tried to look like dangerous animals. Like modern squids, their arms may have had ink sacs that helped them disappear in a puff of black cloud when danger came close. They also had surprisingly complex lifestyles. Fossilized egg clusters suggest they laid large numbers of tiny offspring, which floated freely as plankton for weeks before settling down. Many likely died young, but the survivors grew quickly, spiraling into adults within a year or two. Their short lives meant fast evolution and fast adaptation to new environments. But all of it ended 66 million years ago. When the asteroid hit Earth at the end of the Cretaceous, it didn't just kill off the dinosaurs. It destroyed ecosystems in the ocean. Plankton died first, then the animals that ate plankton, and so on. Ammonites, who relied on those systems, couldn't recover. Some of their cousins, like the Nautilus, survived, but the Ammonites, all of them, disappeared forever. Their remains are some of the most numerous and beautiful in the world today. Mineralization gives some of them a rainbow-colored shine. Others keep every rib, twist, and coil very clearly. They're worn as jewelry. Museums show them off like works of art. But don't get it wrong. They used to be tough, smart, and quick. They were still alive in a world full of killers. Basilosaurus, the serpent-like whale that terrified the Eocene. Killer whales hunted in cold waters long before humpbacks sang in deep blue water. There was another type of whale that was longer, leaner, and much scarier. It wasn't a lizard, even though its name included the word saurus. It really was a whale. It didn't look at all like the ones we know now, though. At the time of the Eocene epoch, about 40 million years ago, Basilosaurus was one of the most dangerous sea animals. Its body was shaped like an eel, and its long head was full of sharp teeth. When it was first discovered in the 1800s, scientists thought they had found a giant sea serpent. That's how it got the name Basilosaurus, which means king lizard. But later studies revealed it wasn't a reptile at all. It was one of the earliest fully aquatic whales. And it was massive. The largest species, Basilosaurus cetoides, could grow over 50 feet long, with a slender body that slithered more like a snake than the powerful up-and-down swimming style of modern whales. Its head was narrow and crocodile-shaped, with a jaw lined with dozens of sharp-pointed teeth. Unlike modern baleen whales, which filter-feed tiny animals, Basilosaurus was a meat-eater. It hunted large fish, sharks, sea turtles, and even other whales. Fossil evidence from Egypt and North America shows crushed bones and tooth marks from other marine mammals. Proof that Basilosaurus didn't just scavenge, it attacked. The most scary find came from a place in Egypt called Wadi al-Hitan, which means Valley of the Whales. Scientists found the body of a Basilosaurus there, along with the remains of a smaller whale and a Dorudon, which is another early whale species. This ocean giant wasn't friendly. When it hunted, this animal was very fast and accurate, and its long body let it twist and strike like a sea snake. Its method of swimming was also unusual. While modern whales power themselves with strong tails and short, stiff bodies, Basilosaurus had a long, flexible spine. It moved more like an eel, wriggling its body in a wave-like motion through the water. This gave it agility, especially in shallow coastal seas, where it likely ambushed prey from below or from hiding places near the seabed. Basilosaurus had tiny, useless hind legs. These little limbs, just a foot or so long, stuck out near its tail. They couldn't be used for walking or swimming, and they weren't connected to the spine in any strong way. Most scientists think they were leftovers from when its ancestors lived on land. These tiny legs might have been used during mating, or had no function at all, just evolutionary leftovers from a time when whales walked. Unlike most modern whales that live in deep open oceans, Basilosaurus preferred warm, shallow seas. It was common in what is now North America, Egypt, and parts of Pakistan. Its long body would have been well suited to these environments. where it could twist and turn to chase down prey in coral reefs, lagoons, and coastal waters. Basilosaurus had a different skull shape than current whales, which is not as well known. It had big ear bones that helped it hear well underwater, but a small brain case. In comparison to dolphins or orcas today, that means it wasn't very smart. It could hunt without being smart because it was fast, big, and had teeth. The rise of the giant filter feeders. Not every ocean giant ruled the sea with their teeth. There were animals that were so big that they didn't have to bite, chase, or tear. They were huge and ate some of the ocean's smallest animals to rule. These were the big filter eaters, and when they came along, they changed the whole marine food chain. Long before today's blue whales glided through the oceans with their massive jaws wide open, there were other filter feeders who paved the way. One of the earliest giants was Leviathan, a fish so enormous it could grow up to 50 feet long. It lived around 165 million years ago during the Jurassic period and may have weighed as much as a humpback whale. But unlike sharks or pliosaurs, Leviathan didn't hunt prey. It filtered plankton and small marine organisms from the water, using delicate gill structures. Its mouth was huge, shaped like a wide scoop. As it swam with its mouth open, water flowed in, carrying millions of tiny food particles. The gill rakers, thin, comb-like structures, trapped the food while letting water pass through. It was slow, peaceful, and didn't need to fight for meals. But its size alone kept predators away. Few animals could challenge something that big, and it had little competition for its diet. The idea of using filters instead of teeth wasn't new, but during the Mesozoic era, it was rare for animals to grow large this way. Filter feeding required massive amounts of food to be constantly available. When conditions were right, like when ocean nutrients increased and plankton boomed, animals like Leviathan took advantage. It showed that you didn't need to be a killer to dominate. You could just be huge. Tens of millions of years later, a new group started to form, the baleen whales. These are the blue whales, humpback whales, and fin whales that we know today. They have no teeth at all. Instead, their lips are lined with rows of baleen plates, which are rigid bristles made of keratin that are shaped like fingernails. The plates work like a sieve, separating krill and small fish from huge gulps of water. The ancestors of baleen whales had teeth. Some even had sharp meat-tearing jaws like Basilosaurus. Over time, as food sources changed and competition increased, evolution took a strange turn. Instead of hunting, some whales began to specialize in passive feeding, swimming into clouds of krill and scooping them up by the ton. The bigger the whale, the more food it could capture in one gulp. Eventually, the teeth were replaced entirely by baleen, and filter feeding became the dominant strategy. The blue whale we see today, the biggest animal that has ever lived, is the result of that plan. It is much bigger than anything else in history, even the biggest dinosaurs. It is almost 100 feet long and weighs more than 180 tons. Still, it only eats krill, which are tiny creatures that look like shrimp. In one day, an adult blue whale can eat up to 4 tons of krill. That's millions of different animals being eaten by each lunge into a krill swarm. One reason this strategy works is because krill and plankton gather in huge numbers in certain areas, especially in places where cold, nutrient-rich water rises from the deep. Whales follow these patterns, moving between feeding grounds as the seasons change. They don't need to chew or bite, they just open their mouths, push the water out, and swallow what's left behind. There's something beautiful about that. Unlike predators that leave behind bite marks, blood trails, and broken shells, filter feeders simply pass through, taking what they need in silence. But make no mistake, they are still giants. When a humpback whale lunges through a ball of anchovies, or a bowhead glides beneath the Arctic ice, they are reshaping the entire ecosystem with every bite. They're not the only ones. The whale shark and the basking shark are 2 types of sharks that have evolved to filter feed. Even though they look big and scary, these sharks are not dangerous to people. They just swim around with their mouths open and let the water feed them. It's one of the oldest ways to stay alive, and it still works very well. Beelzebufo, and the ambush killers of coastal waters. It's true that Beelzebufo sounds like something from a scary movie. This ancient animal wasn't as big as a whale or a shark, but it didn't need to be. It was also known as the devil frog. It ruled its part of the world with raw force, patience, and one of the strongest bites anyone has ever seen in an animal. The Beelzebufo ampinga lived in what is now Madagascar about 70 million years ago. It was a huge ancient frog that was unlike any other. It was a quiet killer along the muddy edges of lakes, rivers, and the ocean. Beelzebufo was massive for a frog, about the size of a beach ball. It could grow up to 16 inches long and weigh over 10 pounds, making it the largest frog ever discovered. Its body was short and squat, with a huge mouth, bony plates in its skin, and strong legs built for explosive ambushes. It looked like a mix between a toad and a bulldog, and it acted like one too. This was not a gentle insect eater, it was a predator. Scientists believe Beelzebufo hunted by sitting perfectly still in shallow water or wet, muddy edges of the land. Camouflaged by its bumpy skin and dark colors, it waited silently until something walked or swam too close. Then, in a flash, it would lunge forward with its powerful jaws wide open and clamp down. Its bite was strong enough to crush bone. Studies on modern relatives like the South American horned frog show that animals this size can bite with over 500 newtons of force, enough to cause serious injury. And Beelzebufo was likely even stronger. What did it eat? It could eat almost anything. There were tiny dinosaurs, crocodiles, snakes, insects, early animals, and even other frogs. It wasn't chewy, it ate the whole thing. Some experts think it may have eaten hatchlings of bigger predators, which would have made it both feared and hated in the old food web. It's possible that even dinosaurs that were adults learned not to go too close to the water. Its skin was tough and covered in armor-like plates, something rare in frogs. This might have helped protect it from biting reptiles or kept it from drying out under Madagascar's ancient sun. The name ampinga actually means shield in Malagasy, a nod to its built-in body armor. While most modern frogs have smooth, wet skin, Beelzebufo was built more like a tiny tank, sturdy, stubborn, and nearly unkillable. But Beelzebufo wasn't the only coastal ambush killer of its time. Across the globe, different ecosystems had similar animals filling this niche, creatures that waited in silence and struck in an instant. In what's now North America, prehistoric crocodile-like reptiles haunted riversides, using long jaws and stealth to catch prey unaware. Some even had armored backs and fins, making them hard to fight once spotted. In ancient Australia, a giant salamander called Coolosuchus lived in cold streams and estuaries. It grew up to 16 feet long and had a wide, flat head, perfect for sucking prey off the river bottom. Like Beelzebufo, it didn't chase. It waited, and when it struck, it created a vacuum that pulled fish and amphibians straight into its mouth. These ambush predators weren't built for speed or endurance. They didn't need to be. Their secret weapon was patience. They could go hours without moving, conserving energy, waiting for that one perfect moment to attack. And in an ancient world full of dangers, from giant sharks to flying reptiles, this strategy worked incredibly well. The fact that Beelzebufo is related to current frogs is very interesting. It has some traits in common with horned frogs that live in South America, even though those two places are very far apart now. Because of this, scientists think that these continents were once linked and formed part of a huge landmass called Gondwana. The fact that similar animals can be found in faraway places tells us about how the Earth's countries moved over time and the animals that could easily cross them. Paleozoic sharks. Before the Meg there were many. Megalodon is often the first shark that comes to mind when people think of ancient sharks. It was a huge, bone-crushing monster that lived in the Cenozoic seas, but sharks have been around a lot longer than that. They've been around for more than 400 million years, which is a long time before dinosaurs even walked on land. And there were other animals besides sharks during the Paleozoic era, which lasted from about 541 million years ago to 252 million years ago. In strange and wonderful ways, they ruled the seas. A lot of them didn't look like sharks at all. Some of them had wings. Some of them had buzzsaw lips. Some of them looked like they came from another world. These early sharks weren't the sleek, torpedo-shaped hunters we know today. They were experimental designs in evolution's lab. One of the strangest was Stethocanthus, a small shark that lived during the late Devonian and Carboniferous periods. It had a flat body, wide pectoral fins, and most notably, a bizarre anvil-shaped fin on its back that looked like a tiny ironing board covered in tooth-like scales. Scientists aren't sure what it was for. Maybe it helped attract mates, or maybe it made the shark look larger to predators. But one thing's for sure, no modern shark has anything like it. Then there was Helicoprion, which you've already met in a previous chapter, a shark with a spiral saw of teeth. But it wasn't alone in its weirdness. The Paleozoic seas were filled with sharks that had twisted jaws, hook-like teeth, and fin structures that defied gravity. One of them, Falcatus, had a curved horn-like spine sticking out from the top of its head. It was small, just a foot long, but its body was agile and fast, likely zipping through reef systems in search of soft-bodied prey. Others, like Cladocelas, were more shark-like in shape. It lived about 370 million years ago and is one of the best-known ancient sharks because its fossils are so well preserved, even showing soft tissues and internal organs. It had no scales, a short snout, and a forked tail. Cladocelas wasn't huge, just about 6 feet long, but it was fast and likely hunted with speed and precision, darting at fish and ammonoids in the open sea. It didn't have a movable jaw like modern sharks, so it probably swallowed prey whole. One big difference between sharks from the Paleozoic and sharks today is how they bit. The top and lower jaws of early sharks were fixed, which means they were connected to the skull. Sharks can now move their upper mouth forward thanks to evolution. This makes their bites more powerful and lively. But in the beginning, things were easier, and sometimes even weird. The Permian period, just before the rise of dinosaurs, saw some of the most diverse sharks yet. Xenacanthus, for example, looked more like an eel than a shark. It had a long, ribbon-like body and lived in freshwater rivers and lakes instead of the ocean. It had a spine on the back of its head, which may have been venomous. If so, it's one of the earliest examples of venom in a vertebrate predator. These Paleozoic sharks weren't top predators all the time. They shared the seas with armored fish, like Dunkleosteus, giant sea scorpions, and early marine reptiles. But they were survivors. When the Devonian extinction wiped out 70% of marine life, sharks endured. When the Permian extinction killed off 90% of species, some shark lineages still hung on. Their ability to adapt, evolve, and diversify kept them going, while other groups vanished completely. A fact that not many people know? Sharks were one of the first animals to get teeth that could be replaced. Some sharks from the Paleozoic could grow new teeth in rows, moving older teeth to the front as they were worn down. This is still a trait of current sharks. In fact, some animal species can lose up to 30,000 teeth its whole life. That idea came up a very long time ago, hundreds of millions of years. Colossal squid and the deep-sea arms race. For millions of years, there has been a cold war deep below the surface, where sunshine doesn't reach and pressure is high. It's not fought with sound or guns. It's a quiet, deadly battle between hunts and the hunted. And as the years go by, each side gets stranger tools. This is the ocean. As for the submarine arms race, the giant squid and the strange animals that hunt them are the stars. The colossal squid, Mesonechotuthis hamiltoni, is one of the largest invertebrates alive today. It can grow over 45 feet long, with a body like a torpedo and arms lined with sharp hooks. Unlike the more famous giant squid, which has long, thin tentacles, the colossal squid is shorter, bulkier, and much more heavily armed. Its limbs are packed with swiveling hooks and barbed suckers that can grip, slice, and tear. These aren't just tentacles, they're weapons. It lives in the deep waters around Antarctica, a place few humans have ever seen. Most of what we know about it comes from pieces recovered from the stomachs of predators, mostly sperm whales. These whales dive deep, sometimes more than 3,000 feet, to hunt squid in the dark. Their bodies often show long scars and circular sucker marks, battle wounds from encounters with giant prey. That means these squid don't go quietly. They fight back, and when a predator bites, they bite back harder. One of the most intense evolutionary races in the water is this tug-of-war between squid and whale. Sperm whales developed very strong sound that let them find prey in very dark water. Because of this, squid got big, complicated eyes. Up to the size of basketballs, they are the biggest eyes in the animal world. Bioluminescence is light, made by living things in the deep that can be picked up by these eyes. They can see coming enemies, avoid ambushes, and call out to other animals of the same kind. But the deep sea has never been just about two animals. It's a battlefield where bizarre, alien-looking creatures compete for survival. Some ancient relatives of the colossal squid, like Tusoteuthis, lived in the Cretaceous oceans more than 80 million years ago. This extinct cephalopod likely grew up to 30 feet long and hunted in the same waters as Mosasaurs and Shiphactinus. Its soft body left almost no fossils, but the size of its beak, found in ancient rock layers, tells us it was a force to be feared. Modern colossal squid are part of a family called Cranchidae, or glass squids, which are known for their see-through bodies and eerie glow. But Mesonicoteuthis is different. Its flesh is dense and heavy, full of ammonia to keep it buoyant. It doesn't flash or sparkle. It creeps. It drifts. It waits in the cold, waiting for something to come close enough to grab. Its beak is made of chitin, the same material as insect shells, and is strong enough to slice through bone. The beak of a colossal squid is large, black, and razor-sharp. Scientists who have studied dead specimens say its bite could easily take a chunk out of a whale's flesh. That's probably why sperm whales go after them with such force. If they miss, they bleed. Still, no one has ever seen a giant squid adult in the wild that is healthy. We've only found dead or sick animals that were caught in nets or lying on the water. It looks like these short views are just the tip of what the deep sea has to offer. Some scientists think that even bigger species of squid have not been found yet. They think that these species drift in the hadal zones miles below our ships without leaving any signs. What's even stranger is how these things have babies. Colossal squid have breeding inside their bodies. Males use a special arm to put sperm packs into females. The females store the sperm until they are ready to lay eggs. Then, deep in the cold Southern Ocean, the next generation hatches. They are tiny predators that move around and are all equipped with the same dangerous tools. Ginsu sharks, the Cretaceous cutters you've never heard of. During the Cretaceous period, big dinosaurs ruled the land and mosasaurs hunted the seas. There were also sharks, which were fast, fierce, and shaped like missiles. Some of them were big though. Some of them were sleek killers with sharp teeth that struck quickly and accurately. The dinosaur sharks in this group were called Ginsu sharks, which is also the name of a group of other sharks from the same time period. They weren't the biggest, but they were one of the most dangerous, and they left their mark on ancient bones all over the world. First, let's look at Cretoxorhina mantellii. This shark was sometimes called the Ginsu shark because its teeth looked like very sharp knives. It grew to be about 25 feet long, which is about the same size as a current great white shark. It lived between 100 and 80 million years ago. The fish had a smooth body, sharp, stiff fins, and a long, strong tail. It swam quickly at times, getting close to its meal before it could decide what to do. Cretoxorhina was a pure hunter, not like current filter feeders or slow scavengers. Its teeth were its most terrifying feature. Around 2 inches long, flat and serrated like steak knives, they were made not just to grip, but to slice. When it bit into flesh, It didn't just crush, it carved, leaving deep, clean gashes in bone and muscle. Many fossils of marine reptiles, like plesiosaurs and turtles, have been found with tooth marks from this shark. In some cases, its teeth were even embedded in the bones, snapped off during feeding frenzies. But Critoxorhina wasn't the only shark making waves. Squalicorax, another Ginsu-like shark, had a similar cutting toolkit. It was smaller, usually around 10 to 15 feet, but possibly more aggressive and opportunistic. Its fossils have been found near coastal environments, suggesting it may have hunted in shallower waters and even scavenged carcasses that washed ashore. One Squalicorax tooth was found lodged in the toe bone of a hadrosaur, a duck-billed dinosaur. This means it likely fed on dead or dying dinosaurs that had fallen into rivers or coastal waters. These sharks had fast metabolisms, large livers for energy storage, and strong muscles for sudden bursts of speed. They weren't long-distance cruisers like whale sharks. They were ambush hunters, lurking in the blue until the moment to strike. And they had to be fast. Their prey included agile fish, armored turtles, and even juvenile mosasaurs. Out in the open ocean, it was kill or be killed. A fossilized shark was found next to the remains of a huge sea reptile called a long-necked plesiosaur. This is one of the most interesting discoveries related to Critoxorhina. It was clear where the shark bit the body because the teeth had made deep cuts in the bones. This wasn't just a bite. To feed, you had to hit weak spots, stay away from defense, and quickly cut things up. That level of accuracy makes me think these sharks were more than just rough and tumble. They had ideas, number cruncher, killers. The name Ginsu shark was inspired by the famous Ginsu kitchen knives that could slice through anything. It's not a scientific name, but it fits perfectly. These sharks didn't need massive size or the shock factor of a Megalodon. They hunted with efficiency. They left behind clean cuts, shattered bones, and sometimes entire skeletons missing their heads or tails. Evidence of surgical feeding. What's even more interesting is that these sharks were very successful. Fossils of these animals have been found in Europe, North Africa, the Middle East, and Kansas, which was underground at the time. That means they did best in warm, shallow water and lived all over the world. They weren't one-of-a-kind freaks, they were everyday fears. Lamnid sharks, like the mako and the great white, may be their closest living cousins. The way they look, how fast they move, and their teeth all point to the same way they kill. But sharks today aren't quite as good at surgery as Ginsu sharks were. Styles have changed over time, but the fossils of these early cuts will always be remembered. Nothosaurus, the crocodile that became a sea dragon. Before the powerful mosasaurs and sleek ichthyosaurs ruled the oceans, there was a strange animal that looked like a crocodile and moved like a dragon through the shallow water. It lived in the Triassic time, about 240 million years ago, and its name was Nothosaurus. It wasn't the most dangerous animal in the water, but it was one of the first snakes to move from land to sea. Nothosaurus was a dangerous surprise predator in a world still healing from Earth's worst mass extinction. It had a long neck, sharp teeth, and flexible limbs. Nothosaurus looked like a cross between a monitor lizard and a small crocodile at first glance. It was long and flat, and its legs were short but strong. It had a tail that helped it turn, and its webbed feet pushed it forward underwater. As it swam through marshes and weak coastal waters, its low, smooth body hugged the bottom. It could grow up to 13 feet long. It didn't have scales on its skin like a snake or armor on its skin like a turtle. Instead, its skin was probably smooth or slightly rough, which made it move quickly and quietly in the water. But the most distinctive part of Nothosaurus was its head. It had a narrow skull with a long, pointed snout filled with sharp, backward-facing teeth, perfect for grabbing slippery fish or squid. Its eyes were placed high on the skull, allowing it to peek just above the surface, or watch from below like a crocodile. This gave it an advantage in stalking prey without being seen, allowing it to ambush from below or the side with a sudden burst of movement. Unlike later marine reptiles, Nothosaurus wasn't fully adapted to life in the water. It still had strong legs and could probably haul itself onto land like a sea lion. It likely laid eggs on shore, returning to the sea afterward. This made it a transitional form, a pioneer learning to master both land and sea. But in the water, it was already a clever and dangerous predator. Fossils of Nothosaurus have been found in what is now Europe, the Middle East, and parts of Asia. Back then, these areas were covered in warm, shallow seas that offered the perfect hunting grounds. Coral reefs, sandbars, and quiet lagoons full of fish made up its territory. Nothosaurus probably lurked in the shadows, waiting for fish to swim past before striking with lightning speed. Once it caught its prey, its teeth would lock in like a trap, and the backward-pointing tips would prevent anything from escaping. Nothosaurus shared its world with other predators, including giant amphibians, early sharks, and larger marine reptiles. It may have been prey as well as predator. That's why its body was built for both stealth and escape. With its long tail and webbed limbs, it could swim quickly through tight spaces and disappear into underwater crevices when danger approached. What makes Nothosaurus especially important is how it helped set the stage for even bigger and more advanced marine reptiles. It was part of a larger group called Sauropterygians, which would later include the powerful Pliosaurs and long-necked Plesiosaurs. In a way, Nothosaurus was like the prototype of sea dragons to come, a mix of land animal and aquatic hunter, experimenting with body shapes and lifestyles that would dominate the oceans for the next 150 million years. Its jaw structure suggests it had a strong bite, but not for crushing, more for gripping and holding. Some researchers think it may have even used suction to help draw prey into its mouth, snapping its jaws shut just as the water rushed in. That kind of strategy would have worked well in the calm, murky shallows, where sudden movement could make the difference between dinner and going hungry. Nothosaurus may have used its long neck for more than just reaching. It may have also used it to surprise its prey. It could attack from surprising angles by putting its head around rocks or coral. This would catch food that thought it was safe. Its thin head and flexible neck made it sneaky, which was useful for an animal that didn't use direct force. The ocean monsters from long ago weren't just bigger, they were also stranger, deadlier, and not like any living thing today. From fish with armor made of bones, to sharks with buzzsaw jaws and sea dragons to squids with hook-like arms, these animals not only lived, but they also changed the ancient seas with their strength, speed, and mystery. Even though their bodies are buried, their stories live on in the world. If you like this look into Earth's long-lost masters, please follow, and leave a comment below. Tell us which sea creature scared you the most and which one you'd never want to meet at night.